to Covering the Fields with your host, Joe Ellison.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we're going to talk about pro football, college football and basketball, hockey, the NBA, and our You Got Host segment. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Please give us your feedback, tell us your You Got Host stories, and visit our coveringthefield.com website daily to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. Find us on Twitter at coveringfield. Now, kicking things off this week, I'd like to introduce our football expert, Big Richard Martin. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Joe. Glad to be on the show.
So, what kind of injury, COVID, and quarterback news do we have this week?
Well, as you know, Joe, COVID is running rapid through the NFL right now. Currently, 75 players are on the COVID protocol list, and the hardest hit of these are Cleveland Browns have 13 players on the COVID list. Rams have 10, and Washington has 10, but it should be down to 8 after this week's protocol going down.
What about quarterback Lamar Jackson? He is not a COVID guy, but he got hurt.
Well, it's not COVID ankle. Yeah, like Aaron Rodgers, COVID toe. He has a sprained ankle actually, and he did not practice today, and which is big news. So we got to keep an eye if Lamar Jackson's going to play. They have a big game this week, so his ankle is considered day to day, and you got to watch if it's a high sprained ankle. Usually, you have no mobility, and they're like 10-1 when he runs over 90 yards a game. So if he's immobile, that just changes his whole outlook this week.
Yes, but I will say Tyler Huntley, the backup quarterback, has played pretty darn well. It looks just as good as Lamar Jackson. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that I thought I had that pick covered. I mean, they were up by 20 points going into the fourth quarter, third quarter, and the kid came out and played great as a backup, and they got it all the way down to 2 points. And they even got the onside kick that could actually won the game outright. So he did a good job and almost got the win.
So we're going to be looking out for Baltimore, Cleveland, LA Rams, and Washington. We got to see who's going to be out on that field. It's bizarre in Cleveland. Coach Stefanski, it's the second time he's got COVID. He's got vaccinated. How many times do you have to get vaccinated, and how many times are you going to continue to keep getting it? Is my question.
Well, yeah, we looked at it last week, Joe. Remember, we thought Mike Williams wasn't going to play for the Chargers, and we thought who was the other one? The other wide receiver who also tested positive, and he didn't play, and the other one did play. So Mike Williams had no symptoms. Baker Mayfield does not have any symptoms, and the coaches doesn't have any symptoms. They're just testing hot on these probably rapid tests, which are not as effective as the ones in the nose.
Well, it was bizarre to see Odell Beckham and a few Rams who just played 2 days ago. Now they're on the COVID list. So maybe they shouldn't have been playing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you can see when it goes through the locker room, especially when it's in the team meeting rooms where they try to keep things isolated. I think the NFL is doing a great job trying to, contain this COVID pandemic. And we haven't missed any games this year, so let's hope we can keep it going to get through the season, the final 4 games.
So, Big Rich, what was the other big news in the National Football League last week?
Well, the biggest news of all is with Kansas City Chiefs laying the whooping on the Raiders. I mean, you talk about getting things back in spades. They did. Last year after their victory, they went in there and did a victory bus ride around the stadium, totally disrespected them. This year they come out and stomp on the Arrowhead out there in Arrowhead Stadium, just totally classless, and Kansas City just laid the wood on them 48-9. Even in the stands, they played the music. The wheels in the bus go round and round. Get your ass out of town. So I thought it was a great job.
Yeah, that was Kansas City's 6th straight victory, and it was kind of ironic that the Raiders stomped on the logo and then proceeded to get stomped by so many points themselves during the game. And without a doubt, like the Chiefs needed motivation against their rival. I mean, they beat them 41-14 the first time. They beat them 7 out of 8 times before that game. And that's not the kind of team you want to, antagonize at that point.
Right. And now Kansas City's rolling. So they're rolling. They look like the beast of the East, them and the Patriots. So let's see what happens this week. Another injury, Aaron Rodgers is day-to-day also with that toe injury. So that's something to watch when Green Bay and Baltimore hit off this week.
I would say that was the largest margin ever in 126 meetings of that Raider Kansas City get-together there. So that was historic, to say the least. I will say Washington had won 4 straight. Dallas head coach Mike McCarthy guaranteed a win, and he got it. A huge win in the standings. Instead of being up by 1, Dallas is now up by 3 in control of the division.
Sure. Washington did play good, though, if you look at it. They came back. They were down, and they showed a lot of heart. They came back and made a game of it. I mean, they were down by, I think, 27-0, and they came back and made a great game of it. So they're still not out of it.
Yes, Heineke got hurt, and they still came back a little bit. So,
sure.
What about Jacksonville coach Urban Meyer? He's again in the news besides just losing.
I guess that wide receiver Marvin Jones, who's like one of the most respected veterans on the team, got in a verbal argument with him at practice, and he actually left the facility, said, I'm done with this, and it took some coaches and some other players to bring him back. I guess he called out some of his coaches, saying that he's a winner and they're losers in their meeting, and just acting like a complete jerk. And then he benches James Robinson, their star running back, one of the elite running backs in the league. He sets him after fumbling on the first drive. He brings in his old player, Carlos Hyde, and he tells the coaches, I'm benching him the rest of the game. Did not want to have any type of input from anybody. Obviously trying to punish him for some reason, or maybe he just liked this guy, Carlos Hyde. But I'm telling you, he looks like one of these college coaches that comes into the NFL, and then they try to use their big ego, and it just doesn't work in the NFL, like AKA Nick Saban.
Yes, he did put his old boy from Ohio State, Carlos Hyde, in the game. Yeah, they did lose 20-0 at Tennessee. The offense looks pathetic. Defense, maybe not too terrible, but they're certainly not winning any games. We have to salute Denver. Ex-player Demarius Thomas died at the age of 33. They honored him by beating Detroit 38-10. That was impressive. And the Los Angeles Rams beat Arizona to stay in the hunt for first place in that division, one of only 2 underdogs to win this week, Atlanta being the other one.
Yeah, what do you think the pro picks would be this week? I'm sure there was a few people that hit them all.
I would think like over 100 people hit them all. Yeah, and I'm sure the sports books lost a bunch of money too.
Right.
It always works like that when the favorites hit.
Well, I tell you what. So, Joe, tell me how your picks went last week.
Well, I went 1-1. But do you want to give out your picks first? I think you went 2-2.
2-2 last week. Like I said, the Cleveland game looked like a winner. Comes back and bites me. And also I had Cincinnati in an overtime loss. And like you were saying in a previous segment, 2 more overtime games. So, I mean, they're just great football games. And it's a lot of parity this year in football, which is great for the fans.
So who are you going to be picking in Week 15?
Well, I'm going to take a dog rat. Well, it's not actually their favorite, but it's not probably something everybody likes. But I like Indy at home, giving up 2.5. They're 7-6 right now. They're fighting for their playoff life. They can't take another loss. I know Matt Jones is playing great, and I know that Belichick has 2 weeks to prepare for that Indy offense. But Jonathan Taylor's running the ball good. Carson Wentz looks good, and I say they get a home win. So I'm going to take the Colts over New England. I also like the Miami Dolphins, who's playing really good right now. They're at home against the hapless Jets. They're going to cover that 10. I'm definitely going to lay that. I do like the Rams. They're at home. It opened at 4.5. It's probably up to 6 now against Seattle after that impressive win. They're at home. I say they smash Seattle. I'm going to go with Minnesota playing Justin Fields in Chicago on the Monday night game. I like Minnesota 3.5. They're going to drop that 3.5. I also like the Chargers at home against Kansas City. I know we're all blowing Kansas City up, but Justin Herbert has 8 touchdowns and 1 interceptions in his 3 games against the Chiefs. He has over 800 yards in those games. They got to win. They're getting 3.5 in a division game. I love the Chargers on against Thursday night, and I'm also taking my Broncos. They're at home against Cincinnati. Logan Wilson's out with a shoulder injury, and the Broncos are just running the ball like crazy. They have a couple horses in the stable, and both running backs look great, Gordon. And so I'm going with the Broncos.
Well, you picked 2 of the games I'm trying. I'm definitely in agreement with you on Miami. The spread I saw was 8.5. I think you told me it already went up to 10.
Right.
I'm not happy about that, but I'm going to stick with them again anyway at home against the Jets. The Dolphins have won and covered 5 straight games. The 2 games before those 5 were pushes, according to my numbers. So, they've at least pushed the last 7 games in a row. 4-2-1 against the spread at home. And they won those last 4 home games by 8 or more. 10 is doable. The Jets have covered only 1 out of their last 6 games, 4-1 against the spread on the road. That one was at lowly Houston. So Miami looks strong. And the other one, sadly, I'm going to have to go against you. I wanted to pick 1 game for Sunday and 1 game for Saturday. Yes, there are 2 Saturday games this week. The one Saturday game I like, I'm taking New England plus the 2 at the Colts. The Patriots, they've won and covered 7 straight games. On the road, they're even better. They're a perfect 6-0 on the road this year, 5-1 against the spread. Indianapolis has been alternating covers and no covers. They're just back and forth. 3-4 straight up at home and against the spread. I like New England. I know it's scary because the Colts are a good team, but I got to go with the Patriots. They're on a complete roll, number 1 seed right now, and they don't want to let that go.
So what week are we in, Joe?
I think we're in week 15.
Right, and both teams are coming off a bye. Is that crazy? Both teams coming off a bye week 14, so both of them will be well rested. It should be a great game.
Should be a fantastic game. I'm looking forward to it. So let's move on to college football now. What were the big stories this week?
Well, the big story in college football is the National Signing Day. They just put out the 4 and 5 and 3-star recruits. Georgia had the top of the class. Alabama has probably been the last 5 years the top of the class, but Georgia actually had more top recruits than Alabama. So it went Georgia, Alabama. Texas A&M was a surprising 3rd. Ohio State was 4. Texas was 5. Penn State, and then Notre Dame. And one thing to look at these potential 5-star recruits that they're getting, everybody usually gets about 2 or 3 of those, but just the big change is when Georgia and Alabama, the 4-star recruits, they get like 14 and 15 and 16 of those compared to everybody else's 5. It just shows you they can fill out a roster every year just with their freshman classes.
Right. There was only 1 game last week, the Army-Navy game. Did you happen to catch it?
I did not catch the game. I was out of town, but I did notice that Navy did cover. I went with Army, and I was in the Navy, so that's even sad, even worse. But I can tell you that, in those 2 games, it just shows you could just throw the records out the window. They play with such honor, and they play with such dignity. Maybe the Raiders could take a little bit from them.
Without a question, yeah. Well, I did watch the game from beginning to end. Navy's quarterback got hurt the first quarter. They were down 6 at halftime. They outscored Army 10-0 in the second half. Defense held them to 57 yards. There was a 9-minute TD drive where they had a fake punt snap to a guy. And most interesting part, he didn't know the snap was coming. The head coach said it was a mistake, but it worked anyway, and they kept that drive going. It was a really well-played game, no turnovers. But the key to the game was the focus of Navy on the now. That was Navy's last game of the season and, the last game ever for most of these seniors because they don't go to the NFL. These guys,
right.
All but maybe one of them. Army has a bowl game in front of them to prepare for. So,
they have the Armed Forces Bowl. Yeah, they have an Armed Forces Bowl, so you always want to go with Army on that. Any military team in an Armed Forces Bowl looks like a good bet.
So the Heisman Trophy was handed out last Saturday. How did that voting go?
Well, Bryce Young, which everybody was the favorite going into it, he won and pretty handily. I think that it was well given. I mean, especially after his last 2 victories he got, and whooping Georgia in the championship game was definitely what he needed to push him over. I'm surprised that Aiden Hutchinson got second. But some people have him going in, as a number 1-2 pick in the NFL draft. So he had a great season. Michigan had a great season. So well-deserved. Bryce Young definitely got it. Other thing in the news, Coach Mario Cristobal from Oregon actually went to Miami, which was surprising. And going from Oregon to Miami, he replaced Danny Diaz out there. And I've always liked Danny Diaz as a coach. He's the one that came up with the turnover chain and started that. And it was kind of good to see out there. But, he played 4 years. He was on the two-time national championship with Jimmy Johnson in Miami. So he goes home trying to bring some honor back to Miami.
Yeah, my pick for the Heisman was Aiden Hutchinson. That's who I wanted to win. I knew he wasn't going to win it. Very happy at least he got second. And seeing as though he goes to Michigan and Detroit has the first pick, it does seem to make sense that he would be the first pick in the draft. That, by the way, where Oregon's coaches all changed, University of Nevada hired the linebacker coach and co-defensive coordinator, Ken Wilson, to be the head coach here in Reno. So that worked out well, I think, for Nevada.
Well, I think that they're definitely getting somebody with a good pedigree out there in Oregon for sure. And, bringing that over here to the Mountain West is going to be great. Yes,
it's going to be sad. Carson Strong officially not going to play in the bowl game for Nevada.
Right. He said he's sitting it out. And so I'm going to stay away from that game. I don't want to bet it. I'm going to root for Nevada, but I ain't going to bet it because I think with Carson Strong being out, that's not a good bet.
Yeah, well, you called that weeks ago. You're right. Why risk an injury now? So what bowl games look like winners to you this week?
Well, we're going to start Yeah, we have 1 week, start December 17th, greatest time of the year, the bowl season. Like I said, we were 6-4 in our picks in the championship week. Let's try to keep that good streak going. I'm going to start with Cure Bowl. I'm taking Northern Illinois plus the 10.5 over Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina scores a lot of points, but they have no defense. Northern Illinois won their division this year, so I think they're going to play a tougher game than that. Coastal Carolina might win in a shootout, but I think that Northern Illinois will cover that 10.5. We're also going to go to the Boca Bowl. We talked about West Kentucky's quarterback, how great he is. They're getting +3 against Appalachian State. That'll be another shootout, but I like Western Kentucky. Let's go ahead and go to the Independence Bowl. I'm taking BYU dropping the 7 against University of Alabama Birmingham. BYU is just a top 10 team, and I think they shouldn't have any problem. Alabama Birmingham does have a good defense. BYU gets it done, covers the spread. I like the New Mexico Bowl. Fresno State's give 11.5 to UTEP. The Lending Tree Bowl, Liberty, with their star quarterback and future NFL quarterback, they're giving 9.5 to Eastern Michigan. Let's take Liberty. And then I like Oregon State over Utah State in the LA Bowl, whatever the LA Bowl is. But I'm going to take them. And then the Frisco Bowl, the last time of the year I could take University of Texas San Antonio dropping 2.5. I'm taking the Roadrunners in the last game of the year. They're going to beat San Diego State. Let's go, Roadrunners.
Well, thank you, Big Richard. And we'll have you on again in the You Got Host segment.
All right, Joe. Let's have a great week.
Next, we have our NBA analyst, Marc the Shark Sabella. How are you feeling today, Marc?
I'm doing great, Joe. I'm down here in Phoenix, and I can tell you that Phoenix is definitely excited about the number one team that we're about to talk about, and that's the Phoenix Suns. But the traffic is still bad.
Well, let's just get right to it, Marc. Who are the teams, obviously Phoenix lately, and others that we should be betting on in the association?
Well, who's hot in the association, Joe, is Phoenix, as I just mentioned. They're pretty much the new consensus number one. They have a league. Well, when I was putting the notes together, they had a league best. Now they're a half a game behind Golden State for the league best, but they have a 22-5 record. They are just dominating at home and have lost a game or so on the road. But they had the long winning streak that came to an end that you and I predicted a couple of shows ago. They've started to kind of come back to earth a little bit, but they are still the consensus number one team right now. They're going back and forth with Golden State, who is a close, maybe 1B team. Klay Thompson is on his way back in weeks, and as most of the sports world knows, Steph Curry set the 3-point record last night, and so they are just firing on all cylinders also right now. They're 23-5, league best. The Utah Jazz have probably been the hottest team right now. They are flying up the standings. They won both the roadies this week by large margins, and I split my picks with them. I wasn't after like kind of a back-to-back situation with them. I thought that they would probably lose the second game. I think they won the second game by an even larger margin. So that theory didn't work. The Nets are still the beast in the East. They're 19-8. KD dropped 51 on the Pistons the other night, and he has to kind of pick up the slack right now because of injuries. And of course, COVID is rearing its ugly head, which we'll talk about also. And Harden has been out and is out indefinitely right now. So the Nets are still strong, but they're not really covering right now. So I would say what rounds out the hot teams, Milwaukee has been really hot at number 5, 18-10. Miami is still doing very well at the start of the season. They're 16-11. The Bulls, who are one of the teams that are now have had the last 2 games postponed due to COVID outbreaks, the first games in the NBA this year that actually had postponements because of that. They are 17-10. Philly's number 8 and playing pretty decent. Memphis is the surprise team, although if you'll recall, you and I kind of talked about that in the beginning of the year. And they're doing this without Ja Morant, their superstar, one of the league superstars. They have been playing extremely well, winning a lot recently. And they were the ones that just set the NBA record for most points in a win. And in Cleveland, believe it or not, as another surprise, is probably my number 10 hot team right now.
So which teams are good ones to bet against right now?
Well, the not so hot teams, Joe, would be Washington was originally one of the hotter teams and were in the top 10. They have been falling pretty dramatically. They haven't been, I guess they're coming back down to earth. I don't think people really expected Washington to be doing a lot this year with Westbrook being traded for several ex-Lakers, but they've been surprising so far up to this year. But this last week didn't do them very well. They've been slowly starting to lose games. Atlanta is kind of a big surprise. I kind of figured that they would be doing better at this point, but they're 13-14 now. And they've been losing a lot of home games also. So Denver is another surprise team that's been kind of struggling as of late. They're 13-13 overall. And the Joker is beginning to look more like an MMA fighter recently. He's gotten tossed out of, I think, the last 2 games for starting fights or defending himself. He's not joking around anymore. He is definitely flexing his muscles and saying, we're not going to take that. And so he's been kind of tossed out of the last 2 games, and Denver's kind of come back and rallied around that and have won. But they are still kind of a cold team right now, especially on the road. Orlando is 5-23 and Detroit is 4-22. I don't think I need to say anything more about those 2 teams.
Well, your picks went 6-5 last week. What are some good bets for next week's action? And what teams have COVID issues that could possibly hurt their chances of covering the point spread?
Well, I think the big one is the Chicago Bulls. And this was actually reported last Friday that they were going to be canceling, or I guess suspending or deferring games, postponing games at this point in time. First NBA team to do that this year, Joe. And so they have 2 games this week that were postponed. And so they haven't been in action for over a week now. What's interesting is next Sunday on December 19th, the Lakers actually are slated to go in there. The Lakers, without Anthony Davis right now, have actually been playing better under LBJ right now. The King has kind of taken over the court at this point in time. They're starting to become favorites, believe it or not, on the road again. They play the Dallas Mavericks tonight, and I know they're with Dallas is without Luka, but I'm not sure the Lakers really should be favored in any road game right now, especially if they're without Anthony Davis. Westbrook, there's been kind of rumors about him being traded. It looks like LBJ is just putting the whole team on his back right now. I'm projecting they're going to probably be 2-point. They're 2-point favorites at Dallas tonight. They're probably going to be 2-point favorites in Chicago, but that's even assuming that Chicago suits up and plays that game. They may still be under COVID protocols at that time. So that's kind of a game I circled and want to keep my eye on just from a pure news standpoint. There's some really good games. Philly is in Brooklyn on Thursday. Brooklyn is, once again, 20-8. They're 9-5 at home, but they're 12-16 against the spread. And they have lost the last 5 against the spread at home. I'm guessing they're going to be giving Philly 3.5. Philly is 9-7 on the road and pretty much even money, 8-7-1 against the spread on the road. I'm going to take a flyer here, Joe, and take Philly and take as many points as I can, especially if Harden remains out. I don't think KD can keep going at the pace he is. Washington plays at Phoenix the same day on Thursday, the 16th. Phoenix, I'm guessing, and like I said, they love their sons out here. They are very supportive of them. They're 12-2 at home, 4-0 in the last home 4 games straight up. However, they're 2-2 against the spread. My guess is Phoenix will be probably giving 3 to Washington, who has really been sinking and kind of being the kind of a slower team now, cooling off. Washington's 4-11-1 against the spread on the road. They're 2-7 against the spread in their last 2-7-1. I'm sorry, against the spread in their last 10. I'm going to take Phoenix and give the points on that. Denver is playing in Atlanta. Atlanta has been struggling this at home. Denver is starting to, they're flip-flopping the wins and losses in their last 7 games. Win, lose, win, lose. Like I said, Joker is starting to pick up the slack. I'm going to take Denver on that one and hopefully get some points in that. I think Atlanta will continue to struggle a little bit at home. Golden State is probably going to be a touchdown favorite in Boston that same day. But Golden State on the road is 2-2 in their last 4 straight up. Boston is actually a pretty good team at home. They've won the last 2 at home versus Philadelphia and Milwaukee. That one, that's going to be tough. I'm going to go ahead and say probably take Boston with the points on that one. The next one would be Saturday, December 18th. Cleveland is playing in Milwaukee. Cleveland is one of the surprise teams this year. They're 17-12 overall, 9-5 on the road. So they're even better on the road than they are at home. And they're playing in Milwaukee, which is always a tough one. But Milwaukee is having injury problems of their own lately. I'm going to go ahead and take another surprise pick here. I'm going to take Cleveland with the points on that. I'm not sure what it's going to go off at, but I'm thinking probably Milwaukee by 5 or so, but I would take Cleveland with the points on something like that. And then kind of my last one for the week, Joe, is Tuesday, just before Christmas, the 21st. These hot Suns are going into LA to play the Lakers. And the Lakers have been playing better under LeBron's kind of leadership, even without AD right now. I'm guessing the Lakers are going to be -2 at home. They're 6-11 against the spread at home, but they're 6-4 against the overall spread in their last 10. Tonight's game against Dallas will be really telling to see if they're really coming back or not. Phoenix, of course, is great all around, 22-5, 10-3 away, but they're kind of a mediocre 14-13 against the spread. And actually, Phoenix has lost the last 2 on the road to Golden State and to the Clippers. That one I'm kind of undecided on, but I think until the Lakers can prove that they can handle the top-tier teams, I think I'm going to take Phoenix with any points on the road.
Well, that's a good list of games. Again, we congratulate Steph Curry on his record-breaking three-point shooting. And I thank you, Marc. And we'll have you on again next week.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Our next guest is our college basketball handicapper, Ronnie McKinnon. How's it going today, Ronnie?
Joe, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. What significant happened in college hoops last week?
Well, Joe, last Thursday, number 1 Purdue lost to Rutgers. Then there was number 7 Texas lost to Seton Hall, who was number 23 at the time. Now they're number 16. Then we went into Saturday. UCLA did beat Marquette. That was the one that I picked with UCLA a -4.5 and under 139.5. So that pick came through. They won 67-56. Then we go into Sunday. Purdue came back and did win. Baylor also won. They beat number 6 Villanova. Then we go Tuesday, which was yesterday. Alabama, number 6, lost to Memphis, 92-78. Going into today's games, we have number 8 Arizona versus Northern Colorado. UCLA number 4 with playing Alabama State, and number 10 USC. Number 10 is USC now. They will be playing UC Irvine. So right now we're at Baylor is at number 1 right now. Then Duke is number 2. Purdue's number 3. UCLA's number 4. Gonzaga's number 5. Alabama is number 6. Kansas number 7. Arizona's number 8. Villanova number 9. And USC is now number 10 in the top 25.
Yeah, the way Rutgers beat Purdue was super exciting. A last-second shot. He got across half court and kind of heaved it up there. Ron Harper Jr., I guess people would remember Ron Harper from the Bulls days, his father.
Right. Correct, yeah.
And the new number 1 Baylor, as you mentioned, they didn't just beat Villanova. They just smothered them, 57-36. Very impressive defense. They lost a bunch of players from their national championship team last year, but they haven't seemed to skip a beat at all.
Yeah, that was a 21-point victory there. Correct, right?
So that's 4 different number 1s in the last 4 weeks. Pretty awesome. Good for college basketball to mix things up.
Yep, it is. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you did hit your prediction of UCLA and under last week. What picks do you have for this week?
Well, Joe, I'm going to end up picking probably 2 or 3 games, but I will put them on the website tomorrow, and they will be for Saturday's games.
Okay. Well, obviously we don't have any spreads out yet.
Correct.
So it's kind of hard to make predictions.
Right. Yeah.
So we will definitely need to look on the website to get your predictions.
Yep. I'll put them on tomorrow.
Okay. Fantastic. Ronnie, before you go, we did mention, you are the huge horse racing fan. Any news on the death of Medina Spirit from last week?
Well, not really. I mean, they said it was going to take about 4 weeks for the autopsy, even though it was initially a heart problem. And again, they did a 9-month investigation there at Santa Anita, and they were, nothing really illegal going on. They did make 27 recommendations for safety and such. So, and I did talk about that, I believe, last week. So right now, haven't heard the autopsy, but.
Right. Still too early to tell. They say that 15% of racehorses die of sudden death. Does that sound accurate to you, or is that just
That's probably That's probably pretty accurate, I would say. There's,
First, they're now calling banning of horse racing altogether, the sport of kings,
Right.
because of this death,
Yeah, I'd sure hate to see that. I mean, I obviously don't want any mistreatment of any animals and horses for sure. But again, with the investigation, they didn't find any of that. So I'm hoping, they can figure things out and also, keep racing because it's a great sport.
Well, I'm sure Bob Baffert is getting some heat in his 40 years of training, 30 failed drug tests, and here it's his horse, the Kentucky Derby winner, that died.
That's right.
Is he getting a lot of heat right now?
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of his, and he's been around for a long time, and so have I. But he lied about it in the beginning, and then corrected himself. He was suspended for a couple years by Churchill Downs in Kentucky, where the Derby was ran. And I also think I believe we talked about it last week, and also in New York. We'll see what happens with that. Again, not a big fan of his, and he's been under suspicion before. So,
okay. Well, thank you, Ronnie, and we'll hear from you again next week. All
right. Thanks, Joe, for having me.
Next up, we're going to talk some hockey with our huge hockey fan, Gator Gates. How's it going today, Gator?
Oh, I'm great, Joe. Thank you for asking.
So, Gator, which teams have been hot in the National Hockey League over the past week?
Well, Joe, I have 4 teams, and all 4 of these teams have gone 5-0 in their last 5 games. And that would be Vancouver, Pittsburgh, Colorado, and Nashville. They're all very hot right now.
Which have been the cold teams over the last 7 days?
Well, I got 4 of them as well. I got Montreal, they're 0-7. Edmonton is 0-6, surprisingly. And Arizona is 0-5. Now, my 4th team is Calgary. They're 0-4, but you got to remember they still had 3 games suspended, and they're going to be coming up this week playing again. So we'll see how they go. If it was good for them to be off, or if it wasn't, is what I'm wondering.
So, Gator, your picks went an excellent 7-3 last week, with Winnipeg being 2 of the losses. What are your predictions over the next 7 days?
Okay. Well, I have 4 games on Thursday. I have Tampa Bay over Ottawa. I got Las Vegas Knights over New Jersey, and that game is in New Jersey. Minnesota over Buffalo. Edmonton over Columbus. Now, Friday, I have 2 games. I got Pittsburgh over Buffalo, and I have Anaheim over Arizona. Now, Sunday, I have 1 game, and Vegas is going to be going to the Islanders, and I would think that Vegas would have no problem with them there. And I have 3 games on Tuesday. That would be Washington over Philadelphia in Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh over New Jersey, and Florida has to go to Chicago. And I think Florida, even though Chicago's playing better, I still think Florida should win that game. But I did lose to Florida last night with Ottawa. Ottawa beat Florida, so that was one of my losses for last week.
Hopefully you have another excellent week on your picks like you did last week. Gator, we're going to review a little bit. The 108th Grey Cup was last Sunday, the Super Bowl of Canadian football, if you will. What happened?
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers won the 108th Grey Cup by beating the Hamilton Tiger Cats 33-25 in overtime. Hamilton had a 19-10 lead going into the 4th quarter. Winnipeg outscored Hamilton 15-6 in the last quarter to send the game into overtime. Now, in overtime, the Blue Bombers did score the winning points by a 13-yard TD pass to Darvin Adams. But, Joe, they were the best team this year with an 11-3 record, and they are very deserving of a back-to-back championship. So I just want to say congratulations to Winnipeg.
Yeah, I took Hamilton plus the 3.5 just on principle because they were at home. I do like the fact that the overtime rules, even if the other team scores a touchdown, you can get the ball back and also try to score a touchdown, unlike the NFL.
Right, I like that too. Yeah, I like that too, Joe.
Yeah, I think the NFL has a crazy rule. If somebody kicks a field goal, then the other team can kick a field goal. But if one team scores a touchdown, then the game is over. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right. I agree.
It's a pretty stupid rule. But the game, it was a really great game, the Grey Cup.
But
Very
all I could
exciting.
say, I mean, before it used to seem like the coin toss used to determine the overtime. So at least it's not that way anymore.
We do have some racing fans out there. We want to mention the Formula One championship was also decided Sunday in exciting fashion. What happened there?
Well, it was very fitting that the final lap of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was decided by the championship. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were tied on points heading into the race. The only other time that happened, Joe, was back in 1974. Now, this season was full of controversy and drama, and Abu Dhabi was no exception. On lap 54, the safety car came out. Hamilton was unable to pit, and that left him on old tires with one lap remaining under green. Now, on lap 56, the message from race control said that the lap cars were not allowed to overtake the safety car. Now, there were 5 cars between Max and Lewis at that time. Now, on lap 57, Red Bull was furious. The safety car was still out, and the lap cars were still behind the title rivals. And Red Bull asked the race director, and I quote, "Why aren't we getting these cars out of the way?" unquote. And it seemed that under pressure, they allowed the 5 cars to pass the safety car. That put Max right behind Lewis. Now on lap 58, Verstappen made his move on turn 5 and crossed the finish line first to win the championship. So congratulations to Red Bull and to F1 for an excellent and an exciting 2021 season.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. Verstappen caught a big break. There was a crash with 5 laps left to bring out that safety car. Pure luck, Hamilton led 51 of the 58 laps. But, of course, as we know in racing, the most important lap is the final lap, and that's the one that Verstappen did end up ahead. You could say, actually, that anybody who bet on Hamilton probably got hosed on that.
I would say that you did.
Yeah, they didn't have to run that lap or even have those 5 cars move out of the way. There was a couple protests going on, but of course those were not even considered. Verstappen, the youngest ever to race in Formula One. He was 17 when he started, the youngest winner of a race at 18. His father was a Formula One driver, so he was bred to be a champion. So congratulations to him. That's he's like 24 now, I believe. So he's got a long career ahead of him.
Mm-hmm. I think so, yeah. And great racing. It is exciting to watch.
Well, thank you, Gator. And we'll have you on later in the You Got Host portion of our show.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. So appreciate it.
Sponsored by MXE Media. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make us furious about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end, something went horribly wrong and they ended up being losers. It's a segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So, Big Richard, do you have a You Got Hosed story this week?
Well, yes and no, Joe. I was going to do the you got hosed on the Baltimore-Cleveland game. Cleveland looked like they were in charge of that, and they just collapsed in the third and fourth quarter to not cover that spread. But it's not the season of you got hosed, Joe. This is the holiday season, and I'm going to do a you got blessed section. Okay, let's talk about Oxford shooting victim Tate Meyer. One of the 4 students that were killed in the Michigan slaying in Oxford. On Spartan Day, Coach Mel Tucker made Tate Meyer an honorary Spartan Dog Recruit of the Year. Great thing to do, to give him honor, and to think that he was a Division I recruit. He was just before he went to that, where he went and rushed the shooter in the high school. He was the 2 days before that. He was in Toledo, and he had 10 touchdowns as a running back, and he had 70 solo tackles as a linebacker. He was a Division I recruit. His dream was always to be at Michigan State, and it was great to see Mel Tucker and the Michigan State Spartans honor him during that. So I got blessed, Joe.
Well, that's a really nice story. So, Gator, do you have a You Got Hosed story this week?
Well, yeah, Joe, last Wednesday after the show, I was talking to our producers about the mixed doubles curling matches that were going on in the Netherlands. And on NBC Sports Network, they have been showing Curling Night in America on Fridays. So Friday night, my wife makes some popcorn, comes and sits down, and I change the channel to the match. Instead of curling, they had college hockey on. So I thought, not a problem, the Olympic channel will have it on tomorrow. Well, when I turned that on, they were showing a repeat of a tournament over a month ago. So I started wondering why. Then I found a story that was written on December 6th from the Associated Press titled, and I quote, "Sex toy sponsorship was too racy for curling crowd, promoters say." Now, a Dutch sex toy company attempt to reach fans of the sport of curling led some broadcasters to cancel their live stream of the tournament that will determine the final spots in the Beijing Olympics. Local organizers of the Olympic qualification event in the Netherlands said that they were told that the on-ice ads with the Easy Toys name and non-explicit logo were too much for the U.S. audience. Dutch media reported that the live stream was also canceled in Japan. U.S. Curling tweeted on Sunday that the video of the Americans' opening round match was not available due to unforeseen sponsorship conflict with the local organizing committee. Now, the national governing body and NBC was working with organizers on the solution. Now, NBC spokesman did not immediately respond to a question seeking an explanation for the decision. And Easy Toys, a sexual paraphernalia website that bills itself as the marketing leader in the Netherlands and Belgium, could not be reached for comment. Now, while the bulk of the men's, women's, and mixed doubles Olympic curling fields have been already filled, 14 teams, including the American pair of Chris Plays and Vicky Priesinger, were competing for the final two co-ed berths in the Winter Games. But the Americans seeking the live stream of the World Curling Federation website instead found a message that the broadcasts were suspended due to an ongoing sponsor rights issue. In videos tweeted by the World Curling Federation and elsewhere, the Easy Toys ads could be seen in 4 spots on the playing surface, and the company name was printed along the hog line, where that determines where the curlers must let go of the stone. Now, at the end, the U.S. and Australia qualified for the Olympics, but Joe, I do think I still got hosed out of this whole deal.
Well, everybody wanted to watch the curling and the Olympic qualifying, and watching the Americans get into the Olympics, they definitely got hosed.
Yeah, it sure feels like it. Joe, do you have a You Got Hosed story for this week?
Well, I can't say I got hosed at all last week. In fact, I got very lucky, and it was other people who got hosed. Last Sunday, I bet the over in the Cincinnati-San Francisco football game. The number of times was anywhere from 47.5 to 49. It appeared there was no way the game was ever going to go over. But the score ended up tied at 20 in regulation. With the crazy NFL overtime rules such as they are, it gave me a chance. I needed the Bengals to kick a field goal and then the 49ers to score a touchdown, or at least the field goal to keep the game going. Sure enough, the Bengals get 3, then the Niners get 6 to make the final score 26-23, 49 points. Anybody who had the under in that game got hosed.
Yeah, I would say so, but that was sure exciting. I got to watch that whole game. It was exciting, though.
Oh, it was a great game.
You got hosed.
So that's all for this week's show. I'd like to thank my guests, Big Richard Martin, Ronnie McKinnon, Marc the Shark Sabella, and Gator Gates, our producer, our engineer, our editor, our junior IT tech, Caden Martin, and everyone for listening. We'd like you to visit our Covering the Field website to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com and give us your feedback, your You Got Hosed moments, and any other comments you'd like to give us, and find us on Twitter at Covering Field. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and you'll hear us again next week on another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field, a CM World Services and the Sage production.